So Rigetti's quantum hardware could be the next Nvidia GPU moments here in 2025, and it's still flying under a lot of investors' radar. We're going to jump into it here today, and if you guys want to see our quantum watch list, you're going to get that. We're going to jump right in here. Oh, and before we do, Big Bear AI here is a stock we've been covering, a top defense company. We have a sale for Stockmate. If it hits $10 a share by Tuesday of next week, then you get Stockmate for free when you enroll. I got some calls there for the company, so that's the sale we got going. Again, it's that second link in the description, and I would love to see you there at Market Open. Let's jump in to the breakdown for our quantum watch list. So we can head over to quantum AI. One of the big ideas that you hear quite often with quantum computing is that QPUs are part of the next big computing revolution. Now, we've been covering this Rigetti stock back here since about $1 a share. At one point, it surged to $21 a share, and that was in February before selling off what was all the way down to $5 a share. And we actually went to the event that triggered that announcement, and then we see it start to build the market cap back up, continue since then up into this $17 range here in this trend. Now, just as CPUs sparked the computer revolution and GPUs ignited AI and gaming, Rigetti's quantum computers have been innovating and redefining a lot of what we know about quantum. You see, they got some contracts with the Department of Defense through DARPA, as well as Air Force, and you can see the breakdown of how their quantum computer works. It's all the way down from the signal chain, the gold-plated copper plates separating cooling zones to the mixing chambers, down to this QPU here, which the QPU is the quantum processing unit. You might have heard of GPUs or CPUs. And quantum hardware can process complex computations exceptionally faster than some of the bottlenecks that could be approached when you're using CPUs and GPUs. Now, there's a lot of industries that are super specific to quantum computers. They have their Novera QPU here. It's a 9-qubit QPU, and really one of the breakthroughs they've had, aside from selling some of these Novera QPUs, I think they're around 900K or something like that, is that they've increased the efficiency of their single qubit gates and their 2-qubit gates, which basically, when you're trying to solve very complex problems, let's say for pharmaceuticals like drug discovery, there's millions of different peptide proteins to find an answer to a vaccine or something like that. Or defense, there's a lot of different variables. Cybersecurity or finance, there's many different variables. We were just working on our finance app today, actually. I was like, man, I got to get a video out here before the end of the day because we were working on a finance app over on Mercatus. And there's a lot of variables that go into the total assets, the balance sheet, or if I search a stock, like we'll have to pull up RGTI, which is Rigetti, and get an analysis. The AIs are considering, in this case, OpenAI here, it's the one we got, is considering a lot of things like the relativity, the press releases relative to 1 week, 1 month, Q2, Q1, all the different financials. There's a lot of things that are considered when just using finance tools. So essentially, when we look at the Rigetti computer, they're focused on working in defense, in pharma, in cybersecurity, definitely finance, because they're working on computers that have the computational power to potentially improve performance, similar to how Nvidia dominated GPUs. Quantum computing is maybe taking on a new era of what could be this new market of QPUs. So some of their distribution channels include AWS, Microsoft, Rigetti's StrangeWorks there. You got coherent control of superconducting qubits. One of the things that recently surged the stock about 30% was this recent news that came out about how they demonstrated the industry's largest multi-chip quantum computer, and they halved their 2-qubit gate error rate. So error rates, definitely something big. Their projected in this industry right now, you can see the companies in the financials, they're about $5 billion market cap. And then you have IonQ, and you have maybe D-Wave and some other ones in the conversation. So these are other companies that are in quantum. And right now, the market's fairly small. We're talking about a couple $1 billion, but it's projected to grow to hundreds of billions of dollars by really into 2030s. Some estimates from IBM anticipate about trillion, a trillion to $3 trillion, which is very bullish. But there is some real demand here for Rigetti, and we do see some influx of capital for them. In their last revenue quarter, they saw an increase of about 1.5 million in revenue, but their net income cash, they got even more, about $42 million. And then the balance sheet has looked pretty good with their total assets up about 100% in cash year over year, and their liabilities are up only 33%, while their assets in total are up about 66%. And one thing to note, a lot of times we go over the balance sheet, we go over the income statements, things like that. The net income has been negative for the most part, but they're starting to pick things up. They got new partnerships. They got a $250 million, if I'm not mistaken, a $250 million deal with what was Quanta Computer over here. Here, this one was a 35 million, but I think in total it came out to 250 million. And they have a lot of cash, so that's pretty good financial strength for the company. Now, when it comes to the profit plan, kind of what we're looking at, obviously there's a lot of institutions, right? You got Rigetti, RGTI institutional holdings that you see more increased positions from BlackRock and Vanguard, Goldman Sachs, State Street, Morgan Stanley, and a lot less decreased positions. So in other words, institutions seem to be buying up Rigetti Computing pretty aggressively. Now, also, one thing to note, I know you guys see me go through these balance sheets. That's what I was saying. Once we get to it, I'm hoping that, we can have a balance sheet like this where, this is in beta, and I won't reveal too much, but we're going to be able to go through it pretty easily here and see the balance sheet in a more functional way over here in Mercatus. So some of the price projections from Mercatus, if we go over the next month, for example, estimate Rigetti to get up into this $16.20 range. Over the next 3 months, potentially into this $17 range or close to it. And over the next year, it's projecting it to get up into this $17.70 range. Now, of course, these are just based on how I analyze stocks. Some of the other targets from notable investors don't seem to be quite as bullish. And they're still lagging in some revenues, as we mentioned, so maybe it doesn't pick on as fast or pick up as fast. I think it was maybe Cantor Fitzgerald that said it was like a $15 stock, something like that. I think it's definitely interesting to see. So some of the long-term projections here, steady growth. You got it's mostly a focus on what seems to be their cash that they have, with a little bit less focus that I'm seeing on some of their quantum computing. So I'll have to, reassess. That's just from a cash and financial perspective that it's kind of looking at it right now, but it's also considering news articles. Rigetti stock has seen this surge up into this $17 range. It's pulled back to this $15.53 range. And now we're watching it with a few things in mind. The first is that this SMA, this green line, oftentimes will act as a support in a bullish market or as a resistance, as you can see here, in a bearish market. Now, when it's consolidating, it's a little less certain, but as you can tell, it recently pulled down to this 200-day moving average, this green line here, which if it does bounce here, we could potentially see this move of continuation up into this level. Now, that would be a bullish sentiment, really finding support at that 200-day moving average, potentially getting up into that $18 price point. As it just was at $17, though, there was this rising resistance level that we've seen where it just got rejected, and we see right now that it's starting to sell back down. Now, one thing to note when it comes to Rigetti is it can be volatile, and if it does sell back down when it has, these are the types of swings that it could potentially sell down as much as, in this case, about 14% right here if it gets down to that support. Now, that would take more patience. It would be a more conservative approach for Rigetti, and that would most likely be healthy for the stock. But they got some other things coming up. If you want to catch their upcoming earnings, definitely stay tuned to the channel. Make sure to subscribe. They got that coming. But also, the reality is that they're at a key level at this 200-day moving average. So if they could continue this trend, maybe build this market cap, we'll be watching for this type of move here in the next week. Now, I think that the quantum computer investment and all the big institutions are seeing something here that maybe most investors aren't. One thing that is more speculative that we recently kind of identified when looking at the stock for why it can make this move and potentially find some support is not the technical so much. While it is at a previous resistance here and it seems to be maybe validating it, maybe it could bounce here, which could be that bullish indication that we're looking for. The other thing that was interesting about Rigetti is with their QPU, we're kind of looking at this space. As you could tell, there's this QPU, but it's actually totally empty right now. So if I go search Microsoft Majorana chip, which is their chip that kind of looks like this, right? This chip actually it's an interesting play because when we look at this chip here, it almost appears, this is their new quantum chip they announced earlier this year. It almost appears that it would fit this QPU. So, it's speculative at best, I guess, but I feel like there is a chance that this chip right here from Microsoft kind of could do something like this. See how that looks? It's like the exact same size as the chip that would go there. It's even got like the drill hole in the top left corner that seems to match. And you gotta wonder, is it gonna be, because you got the Willow chip from Google, you have this chip. You gotta wonder if this is that chip that they're potentially going to be using in here. It looks to be a perfect fit. So that's just something that I'm watching. I really am curious because, they are partnered with Microsoft. So we're going to be watching that closely, as that will be possibly a big catalyst for them as we see them over on Microsoft for tapping into them through the cloud. But you can actually see it over on Azure Quantum here. It says Rigetti provider here, and this is over on Microsoft directly. So they're starting to work through the cloud, which is really interesting. And you can even see the quantum, billing if you were looking to do some testing with the company. Apparently the downtime has been a little inconsistent, but they even give you some code to potentially utilize the system. So I think it's going to be an interesting play. Now for the profit plan, we're just going to be watching this level at $15 a share. See if you can hold this level. And if so, we'll be looking for a move at market open on Monday. If you guys want to join us there, we trade live every day. We actually got some positions on RGTX, which is the 2x of RGTI. So whenever Rigetti goes up or down 1%, RGTX goes down or up 2%. So it's a 2x of Rigetti, and we're trading it right now. As you can see, we got a position there about 56% up over the past few weeks. We got to catch this move right here, actually, which again, over on Rigetti, maybe we were able to capitalize here on about 25%, but over on RGTX, it was about 56%. So those are the types of moves we look for. So if you want to learn how to invest in quantum computing companies, get your hands on some good modules, systems for learning, along with the earnings and targets for all the companies every week, and surround yourself with like-minded investors, then Stockmate is the place. Not only that, but I'll send you a free t-shirt to your house if you want to join us in our daily live trading that we have at market open at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every day, Monday through Friday. We're there. We'd love to see you there. There's a special link for you in the second link down below. Hopefully I earned your thumbs up. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.